Okay, we're going to take a quick look at tables in Excel. And it is an actual function that you use to create basically kind of like a database table. It functions a little bit more like Access um, than just creating columns and rows in Excel. Okay, so what we're going to do is first take the information that we want to create a table with, all right, and just select it. And then right here in styles, we have an option to format as a table. And you can choose some of the different styles that are here depending on what you want. And so this is actually probably going to look very similar. Okay, it's going to ask or confirm that this is the range that you want to convert to a table, and it needs to know if you have headers in that table. So we do. This first row is our headers for each of the columns. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to see change is that you now have these drop downs at the top of each column, and these are actually really nice and handy in that you can do some sorting really quickly. Okay. You could even sort by color. So let's say you'd done some conditional formatting and wanted to then sort that table by that conditional formatting. You can sort by the numbers. If you've got numbers there, then you're going to have these options where you could find numbers equal to something, not equal to, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, between top 10. And something about top 10, it's not just top 10. You can actually change that number. So if you wanted to find the top 5 or the top 2, you could change those numbers. You could also do it by percent if you wanted to find top 10%. Okay, so those are some options there. Okay, so those are some nice quick sorting features that you can do. You can also well, notice when we're in a table, we're going to have another table menu up here at the top. Okay, and in here, you have some options where you might want to remove duplicates. And usually this is a very small list of data, but just like in Access, this is a good tool to use when you have a lot of data. And so sometimes you end up maybe with duplicate entries and you can remove the duplicates. And I do remember that that was an option, a task on the Microsoft exams. And it's really just a button that you click on, and then it's going to ask you again what your table is and which column you want to check for duplicates. So really a lot of times you're going to take maybe these off, and let's say that we want to make sure that we don't have the same menu item in more than once, and so we could make sure we remove the duplicates there. I'm not going to do that because we really don't have that kind of list, but that's kind of how that would function. Okay. Also in this view, we have the option to add a total row. And so when we do that, notice that it adds this total row down here at the bottom. Okay, and again, it gives us a drop down for each of our columns that have numbers. Okay, so right here, it's going to automatically pick one up to create. And it doesn't actually look like a normal sum function. Okay, it uses a subtotal function. And each of these columns has become a kind of like a named range. So you can hear that it's subtotaling the line total column. Okay, and then if you wanted to, do the average price, okay, again, it looks like a subtotal unit price, but it is actually finding the average of that. Or you could do a count. Okay, but notice how your function never really changes. Okay, so you're not really working with the functions in this part for the totals row. You're just using the nice little drop down. Okay, you may want to add to your table, And that's a real simple thing. Notice down here in the bottom right-hand corner of this table, you've got a little mark. I can't even tell what that is. But if you just click and drag, then the table functionality can expand into the next column. And then you can just rename that. Let's say we wanted this to be discount. Okay, so we want to find, maybe it's an employee discount. Okay, what would the employee discount for total be if we did a Friday 10% off sale or happy hour sale, or this is catering, so maybe they did some kind of weekday discount. What would it look like if they had the 10% discount? So then we could just write a formula just like we would have, but when we click on this, it's going to again act like it's a named range. Okay, so it's going to take line total and we're going to multiply it times 10%. Okay, and then we'll hit enter. And another nice thing is it does the filling for you. You don't have to write the function and then fill it down. It does all that immediately. Okay, all right, and then another thing that we're going to look at in this module is database functions. The database functions, there's some count, average, but it just uses this table in its kind of database form to create that. Okay, so what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to find the total of any menu item that has the word tamales in it. Okay, so we're going to do a dsum, and I do want to use my function helper. You know how I like the function helper. Oh, maybe I need to, well, I'll go this way. Okay. All right. So the first thing it wants to know is the database. Well, that's basically the table. So we're going to select the full table. Okay. And it's got a name for it, table 2. And then what field do we want to look at? Okay. And you can, it says here you can type the fields in quotation marks or you can click on it. So I'm going to click on, let's see, we want to do the sum of the line totals. And the criteria, you have to have a separate section kind of set up for the criteria. So my criteria, this right here has to match exactly what's over here. Okay, so that's kind of a tricky part. Sometimes it's best just to copy and paste it to be sure it's the same, because you probably have had this issue, especially when we were in oh, you guys didn't have access, but the spacing matters, right? So if you accidentally put a space after the word item, then it wouldn't match up exactly. Okay, so this is our criteria for this sum function. So it's going to look in the menu item column and it's going to look for the word tamales, and then it's going to come over here to the line total and it's going to sum those numbers up. Okay. All right. So the total of both sets of tamales, the chicken and the vegetable, is $114. And then here we've got a unit price. Let's say we want to find how many items are less than $2.50. So we'll do a D count. And I will say there's D count, there's D count A. So when we do this D count, we have to use a column that has a number in it, but the D count A would let you use a column that has text in it. Okay, but we're going to just use this one for now. All right, so same thing. Where's our database? What fields are we going to look at? And again, it doesn't really matter because we're going to do a count, but it has to be a field that has numbers in it. So we're just going to choose that one. And then our criteria is going to be unit price less than $2.50. And it tells us there are 4 items. So if we look, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 4 items. Okay. All right, I think you're also going to look at data validation. And to show you this real quick, I'm going to go ahead and add another column to this table, and this will be called type. And I know this may not make exact sense to our little menu, but I'll show you, at least I'll show you what data validation, or what one of the things that you're going to use data validation for. And this, here's a little button up here for it, data validation. You can do some different values where the data has to be a whole number, it has to be a date, or it has to be a time. And then anything that gets typed in there has to match that. So that's kind of nice, so you can restrict the data. But there's also a list, okay? And this list actually is a like a drop-down list that you're creating. So what we're going to tell it is that we want to be able to choose between lunch and dinner. Hopefully, let's see if I type that in right. Okay. All right, so I just put commas in between, and now you can see that there's a drop-down box for that. So I would type in, I could do lunch or I could do dinner. Okay. I wonder if I should have done that for the whole column. Yes, there we go. Lunch, dinner. Okay, so now they all have the drop-down box. So that one you're going to have to, it's not going to duplicate and replicate. You will have to select that range to make it happen to all of them. Okay, that's a nice little feature because then you can use the drop-down. I think also if you type like the word L, do it? No, you're going to have to use the drop-down. I thought it would automatically populate, but it does not. Okay. All right. So there's just a quick introduction to some of the things that we're doing in this module, and you've already had an introduction into the lookup functions.